Okay.
So if you could start me off, tell me about where you're from.
Okay. Well, I'm originally from Hartford, Connecticut, and I was born, raised, everything there. And then I didn't leave until I went to North Carolina A&T for college.
So what is it like growing up in Connecticut?
Um, I don't know. Connecticut is like a small state, but I grew up in like the city. I am from Hartford, so Hartford is actually way more diverse than what people think. When I went to A&T, a lot of people thought like Connecticut was just all white people. Not true. Hartford is pretty much like Black and Spanish and very Caribbean. So that's just what I grew up around. I'm Puerto Rican, so yeah, it's a lot of us up there. And yeah.
So can you tell me about some of those? I don't know. I feel like I'm getting a lot of feedback. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about some of those experiences growing up, like around diversity in Connecticut and Hartford?
I don't know. It was just normal. Everybody went to school with either was either looked like me or they were Black. And I mean, our school had so many Jamaicans. I mean, we had beef patty Wednesdays like forever. So that was regular. All of us kind of grew up like inner city. Everybody had like one parent. Like I was raised by my mom. It was my mom, my sister, and me. And I mean, that was just normal though. Everybody grew up with either just mostly their moms or their dads sometimes. But that was just thing. We all took the city bus, we all walked. I mean, that was our normal life. I don't yeah.
Towards which age did you realize that you had sort of like a passion for, say, politics or an interest in going towards law school?
That came way later. Like in high school, I was just focused on going to college. So I'm like the first in my family to go to college. And in our city, like a lot of people don't really go to college. Like that was a big thing if you went. So that's all I was focused on. And this church, they were really trying to motivate us to go to HBCUs. So they took some of us on a tour. So they like packed up a little coach bus and took us to the South. It was like showing us different universities and stuff. So that's how I even really got like focused on A&T. Um, Other than that, it was like watching like shows, movies, like A Different World made a big impression on me. I was like, I want to go to college too. Like that was the thing. So becoming like a lawyer, that came later. When I went to A&T, a professor, Dr. Cunningham Ingram, took me to the side and she said, like, you really need to apply to law school. And I was like, okay, because I was a journalism and mass communications major. I wasn't really looking in law school. I did do like a political program in high school, but that's because my mom worked really hard. Like she worked 3 jobs. She took care of me and my sister, but she was really big on signing me up for like any educational program there was. So I did do like a mock UN program. I did a senator program. I did an aquaculture program. Like she was signing, like I did everything. If it was free, I was going.
So it seems like A&T was pretty much a perfect place for you to end up at then, right?
Yeah, definitely.
What were some of the things that kind of attracted you when you stepped on campus at A&T? Like what about the university uh, drew you in as opposed to the other HBCUs that you may have visited?
Okay. When I got to AT, for one, it was one of the prettier campuses. Like it just felt like this is college. Like it was so beautiful. And then it was just the vibe. Like everybody was really chill, but they saw us clearly on tours and they'll come by and say hi or speak to us. It was very like welcoming and it felt like a family. So like that was really important for me because I will be leaving the state. Like my family is mostly in Puerto Rico, New York, and Connecticut. Like I don't have family everywhere anywhere else. So I wanted to make sure I went somewhere that I felt like safe and like had a support system there on campus. And that's what A&T gave me.
So, excuse me. Can you tell us about some of the activities that you found yourself getting involved with on campus?
Okay, so freshman year, everybody kind of starts off with the hometown groups. So I joined NYNJ. That was a group for all like the students from the north. So Connecticut, it was only like 3 of us, but we were in that group. and I joined Caribbean Aggies. That was really fun. So we had like our own events, and we went to like, I mean, everybody in college went to like the same clubs, but we also went to like reggae clubs. We did that on the side, and like the guys played soccer, and we would sit at the bowl and watch them. But then after that, I got more involved in campus. I ran for Miss Junior, which is a SGA elected position. So I did that. And I also I pledged Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And I was really involved in my chapter. I did the step team 1 year. And those were like the main things. I also wrote a couple articles for the A&T Register, but I realized that wasn't really my thing. But I did write some articles, like I think 4 or 5. So I did that sometimes. And I think those were like the main activities I was involved in. And I studied abroad.
Okay, so coming up in this time in college, what books, what literature starts to become like the influencing factor really towards where you find yourself now? Just your outlook on life, your interests, your goals, things that are interested. Like what books, movies, television shows, music, like what really I guess if I had to use an example for myself, coming from high school, coming from a small town in North Carolina, right on the North Carolina South Carolina border, Laurinburg, uh, there was a time in which 2010, 2011, 2012, there was a phase in music that was starting to become a little bit less snap and rolly and pop and lock and music, right? And it
Yeah.
became a little bit more serious, and folks was talking about issues, right? This is like the rise of J. Cole, the Kendricks, the Big Crips, and all of those folks. So I'm hearing these rappers that are talking about certain political things and talking about stuff that is going on. At the same time, there's Occupy Wall Street happening. At the same time, there's Reverend Barber and the NAACP going, that's organizing in my local area. So all of these things are having like a big influence, and they play a part in like where I find myself today. Where do you see yourself, like really like the beginning, the genesis of like this Michele Delgado, that is the lawyer now, the person that reads constantly and is always looking for new books to add to the list and always recommending folks. Like where did you start seeing this like transition? Where do you identify the genesis of who you view yourself as today?
I guess it really, I always loved to read, but I feel like it really became intense in college based off my classes. Like one thing that's really dope about HBCUs is that your professors are gonna kind of like tailor their curriculums to like our history and our people. And so, I mean, I didn't read a lot during college because we had assignments and stuff for school, but they would assign readings and things that would matter to me. So we did a lot of like the classics, like, by Richard Wright and Zora Neale Hurston and all of those things. So like reading those classic like Black literature books, I guess that intensified like my interest in like reading and learning more. And for me as a Puerto Rican student, I want to expand and like find out more about my people too. So like I started reading other books to learn about my folks and kind of connect that to like Black history as well. And so that's where it started. So I didn't do a lot of like reading outside of classes during that time because I was so involved in campus. But it gave me kind of like a foundation of love for it. So by the time I'm in law school, we do way more reading, but like I found myself wanting to read other stuff on the side because I was just so sick of it. I was like, class is stressful. I'm going to go read another book. And other people like, so you take a break from class to read more books. I'm like, but it's different. Like I have a love for it now, like learning more about like history, or sometimes I just want to go in a story and it take me elsewhere. So it was kind of like my release from hard studies.
I agree. Coming from a little small town, reading for me was my escapism, my own
Mhm.
slice of escapism, and I could just slide into a reality that didn't look like light poles and pine trees everywhere that I turn around. Right, like
Yeah.
just surrounded by pine trees everywhere. I can read and I find myself in the landscape of the big sprawling cities, right? Or I
Mm-hmm.
could find myself in a place anywhere other than what I am. So I definitely agree with like how in the middle of all the class studying that you have to do, the assigned text that you have to take care of, how you can find comfort in like, reading other things. Do you find yourself reading more fiction or nonfiction?
I read way more fiction, but like I like nonfiction. It's just when I do read nonfiction, it's typically heavy. And so I had to space those out. So that's why I read more fiction. But when I do nonfiction, I prefer history. So like some of my favorites or like politically related books. So like the what's that book? The mass incarceration. What you know what I'm talking about? What's it by Michelle Alexander?
The new Jim Crow?
Oh, the new Jim Crow. I love that one. And then the war against Puerto Ricans. I really love that book. It really explored kind of like the U.S. history on the island in that whole like beginning era, and a lot of the things that they don't talk about. Because I mean, I feel like a lot of our history is not talked about or taught in school.
Mm-hmm.
So when I do not nonfiction, I like those type of books. But they're so heavy. You can't. I can't go from one to another. I need to take a break. So I like to read a lot of fiction too. And I have a book club that I started, and we do a lot of fiction, but we kind of like focus on Black authors or Latina authors.
Okay. So tell us about law school. Where did you go? And what influenced your decision to go there?
I attended North Carolina Central University School of Law, and the biggest influence was money. So they offered a half scholarship, so that was helpful because law school can be very expensive. I knew I wanted to attend the HBCU law school. There's not that many. There's six accredited ones. So I applied to like all of them, and I got into all of them. But Central was closer to A&T. So, and I kind of wanted to stay in North Carolina. Like I grew a love for that state. That became my second home. So I went to Central, which worked out well because now practicing and stuff, a lot of the judges that I interact with, or like a lot of the great attorneys that I have met, they went to Central School of Law. So I'm really like happy about my decision.
That's good. Um, so in particular, what was the process like in preparing and heading over to law school? What were some of the things that you had to do? Just for folks that may watch this on the YouTube that are interested in going to school, interested in going to law school, but don't know what the process is like.
Okay. Well, first I would like to say that your major does not matter. So let's say you went to any other major and all of a sudden now you want to go to law school, you can still apply. You don't need to have a criminal justice background or any of that. They look at your GPA, your LSAT, and your recommendation letters and your personal statements. So some things I did to prepare was I joined a course at A&T about the LSAT. Now I can admit I should have took that course a lot more seriously, but I was like running for like Miss A&T. I was very distracted, and this wasn't something that like I had always planned. So I wasn't as focused on the LSAT as I should have been, but I strongly encourage anyone interested in law school, please do well in LSAT because the higher you score, the more like the more money you will earn. So it's like directly correlated most times. I had to reach out to different professors and get my letters. My personal statement, I spoke a lot about like my background, where I'm from, my family, and like why I wanted to go to law school, why that specific law school. So I try to include all those factors into my letter, my statement. And I also went to A&T's writing center. So I know that there's certain things about my writing that's a little off. I really write how I talk. That's not necessarily the best. So I went to the writing center on A&T's campus, and they helped me edit it about 3 times before I submitted it. So that was really helpful. And I would say just make sure you really like tell them about yourself. Like regardless of your grades and your LSAT score, you want to make sure you personalize like who you are. So put it all on paper.
Tell us about the law school experience. Who were some of your favorite professors? What class did you enjoy taking? What were some of those experiences like?
Okay, so law school was hard. Like it is so hard. I had a rough transition because in law school you learn that there's a difference between preparing for class and studying. It's two different things. You would think it's the same. It is not, because you spend hours and hours reading the assigned reading, and it's hundreds of pages, and you're trying to like make sure you fully understand it. You got notes, because in law school it's like the Socratic method. They may be like 50 students in your class or 60 or whatever, and they're just gonna call you on the spot, and you just have to know the answer to the question. No one's gonna save you. So it's like that anxiety and stress of like, oh my gosh, am I gonna get called on? And like, what are they gonna ask me? Because we read about 15 cases, like which one? So it's like that whole, like you spend so much time preparing. And I guess my first like semester, I focused so much on that I didn't realize I needed to be like studying and memorizing things for an essay. Cause like law school is just your midterm and your final. And your midterm might just be 5 or 10% of your grade. So it's really just final. So it's like you're like basically studying blindly until the end. So that's something I had to adjust to. So it was really difficult. But I will say that like your professors are there for you. You just have to actually reach out. Like, I mean, they'll walk around, they'll be available, but if you don't ask for help, you know, you're not going to get it. So I had a good experience in law school, but it was really hard. So I'm just glad I had like a good team of professors there. My favorite professor was actually Professor Green. And that's because I don't know if I just love tough love, but he was really hard and like rough. Like I used to be terrified going to his class. But I feel like by my third year, he had saw my growth, and he really like worked with me, and he saw me struggling. He still like took time out to like help me go through my papers, and he helped me kind of like practice different things. So I really appreciated that. Now there's a lot of professors I can mention, but that one stood out to me the most.
So, what were some of your extracurricular activities in law school as opposed to like undergrad? Was it a little bit more focused and narrowed down in law school, not so much over the place?
Yeah, because in undergrad, I was Miss Junior. I pledged, I did the step team, I did all kinds of just fun things on campus. But law school is kind of like your extracurriculars are gonna be law related or tailored to like that experience. So I mostly do like a lot of volunteer things. So on Fridays, I would do Lawyers for Literacy. It's just law students who go to elementary schools and we read with the children. So I did that. And then on Wednesdays, we did a mock trial type team with middle schoolers. So we worked with them every week. And then at the end, we brought them to the law school to do like a fake trial in our courtroom, which they love. Because I mean, imagine a child, like, even though our courtroom felt like small to us, like it felt huge to them. So seeing their faces was really dope. So I did like a lot of those volunteer things. I wasn't so much involved in like the student government or anything like that on campus because I was also working. Taking the bar exam and stuff is very expensive. So I was working to save up for my third year. So like I was working at like a cupcake shop, then Home Depot, then the library. I had a lot of jobs.
So, excuse me. When you look back at your time in law school and you're reflecting on kind of the path that it took to get there, what would you say to some folks that are out there that are interested in being a lawyer? They have a lifelong dream of being a lawyer, but they were told that their GPA might not be too, well, or might not be that good enough to go to school, or that, certain issues or whatever it is, whether it be money or they're worried about not being able to pay for school, not knowing how they're going to be able to survive or whatever. What could you say to those folks that are just worried?
Okay. I'll start with the GPA, folks. I will say check out HBCUs because we have a history of being like a second chance school, meaning like our GPA and LSAT requirements tend to be a little lower than like PWIs. But that's because we're trying to expand opportunities for our communities. And we know that statistically, minorities we don't do as well on standardized tests. So I feel like HBCU law schools look at you as a whole person. They're gonna look at what you're involved in, what you're doing, things like that. Those are like those second chance opportunity schools. So I feel like you will have an opportunity. I think you should at least apply to those. And I'm not saying it's gonna be easy once you get in. Like it's a little easier to get in. It's hard to get out. That is always like kind of like the phrase we go with, because once you're in, they're gonna groom you. They're gonna break you down, build you back up. They want to make sure that when they spit you out into the real world to be an attorney, that you are prepared. So I would say apply. Some law schools have a pre-summer program where you can go to law school for like 3 months before the actual semester starts and take courses. Now, depending on the program, some schools that those grades that you have will not be in your actual GPA when school starts. It's more so to teach you how to go about studying, how to go about learning the law, and give you that head start. So by the time you go to your first year, you are now ready, you know what to do, and you're probably gonna do better than you would have just off gate. So they do have programs to help you, and they're still creating different things to help these students do well. So I know that if your GPA is low, you're gonna be concerned about whether you'll get in. I say just apply. I mean, the worst they could say is no. Sometimes you could reach out to the admissions and see what can you do. Like, can you take an extra class before applying? Just try. I don't feel like anybody should just not try, especially if that's your dream. If it's your dream, you should always go after it. As far as money, I come from a really poor background. All my friends, if we did go to school, it's loans. We don't have anybody to give us money. Even for law school, in law school, in college, it's kind of like I survived on those refund checks. I wasn't, unless I picked up like a part-time, but you still can't pay rent with that. So if you want to be a lawyer, that's your dream, just go get the loans, deal with it later. That's me, but I don't know if that's the best advice. Obviously, somebody who's very into like financial, like literacy, they may have a different advice, but that's just what I did. And I'm okay with that. Like I had to take out loans to be where I want to be. That's just it.
Yeah. I would argue on your side. I would say that law school is one of those investments, like any other investment, that it potentially increases your earning potential, as opposed to, like, say, just a 4-year degree. So yeah, you go into debt for the short time. It's kind of like the national government, the budget or whatever, with a stimulus spending check. Like, yeah, like we're going to go into the red for a little bit. But what we're hoping is that the return on the investment yields us so many results and so many positive gains that we're not even worried about what it took to get that. So have you seen that yet? Like, have you seen the return on the investment in life?
I was just about to get to that. So the law is interesting because it really depends on where you end up working and what you end up doing with your law degree, obviously. For me, once I was in law school, I was very focused on, like, I wanted to help people. Like, if I'm gonna be a lawyer, I wanted to be somebody who's doing something. So the thing about that is that depending on who you go to work for, you may not make a lot of money. Like, I mean, obviously you have a comfortable salary, but I mean, your loans, you will be paying them off unless, like, you go into the public interest sector. So, like, if you want to go into nonprofit work, or you end up being like a public defender, things like that, you're going to have a lower salary than obviously students who chose to go into corporate law or business law, things like that. They are going to make a lot of money off gate. You're probably not going to make as much, but it depends on what's important to you. Are you chasing a dollar, or are you trying to affect lives? Are you trying to change lives? So it just depends on what you want to do. And I'm not saying you won't be able to make a lot of money. It's just like starting off, it might be a little rough. And I mean, they have different things. Like, I'm in the public interest loan forgiveness program, where it's like, if I do public interest work, which is either working for the government, nonprofit, you do any of those things for 10 years, they'll forgive your loan. So I graduated law school at 24, which means my loans will be forgiven by 34. My life is still young at that point. So they have different things to help you. And some stuff, like, let's say, like, I started off as a public defender. If I went and did criminal law at a private firm, obviously I would have made more money, but I had an interest in helping indigent people. So you got to balance that whole, what do you want to do? What are you passionate with? balancing it with like what you will make. So it really just ranges.
Okay. So I don't want to hold you too long. This is the last question. Hopefully I can get you back on here and I can ask you some more questions.
Okay.
But if you were to um, give a score from like 1 to 10 of your overall experiences in North Carolina, education wise, how would you rate the North Carolina like higher learning community?
And the higher learning community, my college experiences and my law school experiences were phenomenal. Like I learned, it's like you don't just get an education, you learn about yourself, you gain that confidence. Because I mean, I feel like success is directly correlated to your confidence. And the more you learn about yourself, the more you gain confidence. And when you go to these institutions, they build you up and spit you out to make change in the world. And I feel like a lot of my classmates are doing that. I'm trying to do that. So I had a great experience. And I mean, I know you said like North Carolina higher ed, but my experience was solely HBCU. So I'm speaking on that. I can't talk about what it was like at UNC or Duke or UNCG. So I'm solely talking about my HBCU higher educational experience in North Carolina. That's what I'm rooting for. Go to A&T, y'all. Aggie pride.
Okay, y'all. So thank you so much, Michele, for joining me today. Again, this is a real opportunity for folks that are interested in becoming an attorney or a lawyer, whatever you want to use. Do you call yourself an attorney or a lawyer? Which word do you use?
I use attorney, but I don't mind if people call me a lawyer. It is what it is. But I use attorney. It sounds a little more.
Okay, I didn't know if it was one of those like pejorative lingos, like how police officers.
Nah, you
like
can use either one.
Okay, it's kind of offensive to some to call him a cop instead of a lawyer, police officer, or
Nah.
Okay. Teachers is the same way. Like there's a teacher, then there's some that call themselves educators, right? So like.
Well, I think attorney just sounds better.
So attorney is the educator version of lawyer.
Yeah, exactly. But I wouldn't be one of those, don't call me a lawyer. Like, come on.
Okay, yeah, some folks they go and get like a couple of letters behind their name, and that's what they want to be referred to as like specific.
Right.
Yeah.
Nah. Start acting different. I don't know.
And that's what I appreciate about you. Just full transparency. How I met Michele, 2015.
Yep.
With Moral Monday, NAACP. We were fighting against the voter suppression bill that was happening here in North Carolina at the time. We go into the prison, or we go into the General Assembly. We get arrested. Whatever happens, they send us over into jail. While we're in jail, we plan on doing like no bail or whatever, something crazy. Then we found out the Charleston massacre happens. So like Reverend Barbara is starting to do like a Bible study in jail. Next thing we know, we get kicked out of jail. So the first time I met Michele was when I got kicked out of jail in Wake County. I never thought that would be possible for a person that looks like me to get kicked out of jail. But yeah, Michele was there for that experience.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Michele. If you want to stay on, we can. I'm about to end the video here.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me.
No problem.